we met on a film called Telstar, I think in 2007, and we immediately got on, and we shared a love of mischief and fun. And at the time I was writing series 2 of Gavin and Stacey with Ruth Jones, and I went back to Ruth and said, you've got to meet this guy Matt, he's fantastic, he's bright and he's funny, and I think he'd be great in our show. And so Ruth met Matt, and she immediately saw the very thing that I saw, which was, God, this guy's fantastic. And so we wrote him a part in Gavin and Stacey, and then it was while we were shooting that show, we both started talking about, I wonder why no one ever tries to make a half-hour comedy show that has the plot and the depth and the high stakes of a drama and a thriller, like those American box set shows that we love. And that's where it was. That's where we started. Really.
James, actually, we walked to lunch, and on the way to lunch, just around the corner from my editing room, James pitched me verbally the opening 10 minutes of the pilot episode. And before we'd even got to lunch, I knew that it was, and having known James for a while, I knew it was something that I was definitely going to be very interested in. And once he'd sent me the script, I was in straight away, because for me it was something that hasn't been done. I don't know if it's not ever been done, but I don't think it's been done in this way, and it's certainly, if it has been done, it hasn't been done like this for a while, which is to try and do a show, and whether we've been successful enough or not, we'll leave it to other people to judge, but to try and do a show that delivers the drama and the action and the thriller in the same way that these big drama shows do, but also to deliver the comedy as well. And I guess what Matt and James were hoping I would bring to it was a sort of cinematic vision, but also to try and help them develop these characters and develop the comedy of the show as well.
I play a guy called Sam who works for the council in a job he doesn't like. He's a man who has lost all his ambition and vigour in life, and his ex-girlfriend has just recently been promoted to being his boss, so he's in a bit of a tricky situation. And James,
and I play
sitting to my right,
Philip Bourne, who is a mailroom guy in the office that Matt's character Sam works in, and he's a 31-year-old.
We put a number on it at some point.
31-year-old male distribution assistant who lives with his mum. He's a bit of a fantasist. He's a bit of a. He thinks that he's almost like an action hero himself, but with no reason for that at all. And that's who we play, and they get involved. They get embroiled in a sort of criminal conspiracy through sheer accident, really. And Matt's character Sam is unwilling and doesn't want to go through with it, and my character Phil says this is the greatest thing that's ever happened, and we should. This is amazing. Stuff like this never happens, and he says I don't want it to happen, and that's the show really.
It's been a steep learning curve, because I've worked in TV. I directed the last season of episodes for the BBC and Showtime, and so I'm used to that kind of TV format, but I'm also used to the feature format as well, and that's sort of where I'm, I guess, in some ways more comfortable. And so for me, the challenge of this show was delivering essentially a feature film in 6 parts, and that's kind of how I approached it. Very challenging on a TV budget and TV timescale, because not just in terms of the whole production, but within your 28 minutes worth of episode, you do have to fit in essentially what you'd have an hour to do in the drama world. We're trying to deliver that in 28 minutes, and the jokes and the big set pieces and everything. And but I always feel like challenges like that present great solutions if you really dig deep. And I think the comedy side of the show enabled us just to blur a few lines and make a few logical leaps that you wouldn't necessarily be able to make in a drama, but still keeping the reality intact. But yeah, it's certainly fast paced, and it's fairly relentless.
We wrote a show that's incredibly ambitious in terms of scale and size and scope. You know, we've got a brilliant director called Jim Field-Smith, whose vision is terrific, and he was a real driving force for us, just make it bigger, write it bigger. We can't make it bigger than it is on the page. We can only bring it down. So you need to go as far as you can in your imagination, and then we'll see. And so when we were writing scenes of, like, you know, rooftop chases and jumping from one building to another, or jumping off a bridge into a moving train, or any of these things, cars crashing and sliding and skidding and helicopters and stuff, it became very evident that if we were going to make the show in the manner that we needed to, because for the jokes to work it had to be visually as stylish as a film, that we were probably going to need some new investment. And we met a brilliant lady called Charlotte Coe at Hulu. We finished writing this show in New York, and we met Charlotte in New York, and she flew in to meet us, and she'd seen the pilot, and she'd read, we had 4 scripts at that point, didn't we? And she'd read all 4.
And she knew them better than we did, actually.
Her notes were precise and brilliant, and she just said, we would love to come on board and make this show with you, and we'd love to come on board now. And I think without that investment, I don't know if we would have been able to deliver the show in the manner that we have, you know. And a lot of that is down. We have an amazing exec producer called Mark Freeland at the BBC and through BBC Worldwide, where everyone's come together to just support our vision. And I feel like without those new platforms, without those, you know, the more platforms there are for people to create stuff, the more things will be created, and then the better creations will come around, you know. The last show I made, the show Gavin and Stacey, we started on BBC Three, and if BBC Three hadn't existed, I don't know if our show would have been made, you know. And you could, you know, you can take out a Gavin and Stacey and put in a Little Britain or a Nighty Night or any of those things. And so I think it can only be a good thing to have more people wanting new and original content. It's tremendously exciting for us to have a show that's going to play on one of America's fastest growing new media, and I think, you know, and we're very proud, because we never really sat down to write a show that would appeal to a mass international market, and yet it just so happens that we might have delivered one, and I think we feel very proud of that, because we just tried to write a story about 2 guys who get involved in something, and it's the action and the visual scope of the show that mean internationally you know exactly where they're from. Just because it's set in Berkshire County Council, you could take Berkshire and put any sort of ordinary American town or Danish town, or the point is, you know, the parameters are clear that these guys have a very ordinary life, and what they're mixed up in is extraordinary.